The following is a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
Welcome to Cartoon Fun, it's Cartoonerific. Yeah!
It's Cartoonerific. Cartoonerific. It's Cartoonerific. With your host Brian Mitchell.
Well, welcome to the Cartoonerific podcast, classic animated cartoons. I am Brian Mitchell, and I am the host. This last Saturday, we lost one of the greats in the business. That was Richard Sherman, who was part of the Sherman Brothers. And if you don't know who the Sherman Brothers are, they wrote a lot of great music during the late 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It was a team, an actual team of brothers that worked very, very well with Walt Disney, and they were very story-minded. So the way they wrote music was they would get involved with the story, and they would write songs that helped carry the movie or project along. And they did that very well with Mary Poppins. They came up with some very haunting themes for that. But they also wrote some wonderful music for The Jungle Book and for a lot of the Disney live-action films as well. They were involved with Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which they wrote a wonderful score for, which a lot of it was actually rejected stuff from Mary Poppins and used in Bedknobs and Broomsticks. But they continued to write, and they mostly worked later on with the Disney theme parks, but they also wrote for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which was a Cubby Broccoli picture, which happened to use a lot of Disney people in it, including the Sherman Brothers. And they wrote some wonderful music for that as well. They did Broadway shows. I love a lot of their music, and pretty much all their music I love. They were wonderful songwriters. And it's sad to see Richard Sherman go, but he has a legacy of all these wonderful songs. But they worked really well with Walt Disney, and and they were very simpatico with Walt Disney. And probably out of all the songwriters that Disney worked with over the years, they really had a feel for Walt. And they would inject a lot of Walt's philosophy or his, the way he looked at life into the songs. And one of the songs they happened to do that with was the Carousel of Progress song, There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. And there's a line in there, which is, it's actually 4 lines that were used for this song that kind of describes Walt Disney himself. And so it's in the song. So it says, man has a dream, and that's the start. He follows his dream with mind and heart. And when it becomes a reality, it's a dream come true for you and me. Well, substitute man with Walt, and that's pretty much it. I just wanted to say that, but thank you, Richard Sherman, wherever you are. And thank you for the wonderful music that still lives on today. And all the projects that you've worked on, and they've definitely gone beyond the project themselves to live in my mind and heart. So thank you. Anyway, getting back to the show, today we have on a brilliant guy. He's been called a genius in animation. I worked with him briefly back at the Don Bluth Studios back in the 1980s, late 80s, early 90s. But he's an incredible talent. He doesn't do too many of these interviews. He agreed to do this one, and I'm thankful. But we're going to have him on in a few moments. That is Mr. Michel Gagne, and he is a premier special effects animator, but he also does character animation as well, and very well. So he'll be on right after this. Don't go away.
The Cartoonerific podcast is now available on Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Alexa, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, Player FM, Apple Podcasts, and many, many others. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. A new Cartoonerific podcast is uploaded every Friday. And now it's time for our special Cartoonerific guest.
Well, I'm very pleased to have this gentleman on. He's a wonderful guy and an amazing talent. And like I said before, he doesn't do too many of these interviews. He agreed to do this one, and I am very grateful. He's done a lot of things. He's done live action. He's done animation. He's done 2D and 3D and special effects. He's unbelievable. And he's working on his own feature film. He's been working on this for a while, too. And I worked with him at the Sullivan Bluth Studios in Los Angeles. And he's a fine, fine individual. So please welcome Mr. Michel Gagne. How are you, Michel? How you doing today?
Pretty good, man. What's up? It's been a long time. I do remember you, though. From
Yeah. I would sneak in your room once. Once or twice.
So was it?
Yeah.
Were you on Van Owen? It was Van Owen the street.
We were on Van Owen across from the airport. Yeah.
So that was in Burbank. Okay, because I was in two locations. I was in Van Nuys.
You were in Van Nuys with American Tail.
Yes.
Right.
So right.
And then we were working in the same studio. We were in different sides of the studio. I was sitting right next to John Pomeroy's office. I was in there with Bill Waldman was in there.
Yeah, Bill. Yes.
And then you were on the other side, and I think Bruce Smith was over there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bruce Heller.
What is
Bruce
that?
Heller. Bruce Heller.
Bruce Heller, but Bruce Smith worked there for a little while too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bruce
So
I remember Bruce Heller was across.
Yeah. Well, we had a lot of people working over there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what I remember mostly from Bluth in Burbank was the ping pong table.
The ping pong table in the back.
Yes.
With all the props back there from American Tail and stuff.
Ghostly stuff, and didn't they have like some kind of ghost hanging or something?
Yeah, they had a lot of weird stuff over there.
Yeah,
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us about your childhood. How what were your influences when you were growing up? Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in. I'm sure you've never even heard of it. It's a small town called Saint-Félicien. It's French Canadian, and it was in Quebec. It's about 2.5 hours north of Quebec City.
Oh, okay.
And I grew up there until I was like about 11,
right?
I believe. And when I was 12, I moved to Quebec City.
Right.
I mean, Quebec City now feels like a quaint little village, but at the time it felt like moving to New York or something.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like I was, coming from a place with a population of 8,000 people to like suddenly, like,
Were your parents artistic?
No.
My
dad was a lawyer.
Ah.
So
okay.
It's nothing to do with art.
Nothing to do with art, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And my mom had a store for a while. She sold like women's dresses and stuff like that.
Oh.
Women's underwear.
Right.
Things like that.
Wow.
So she wasn't into art.
Okay. All right. So you moved, and were you watching cartoons as a kid, or?
Yeah, I was. My favorite cartoon as a kid was Goldorak. It's Grandizer in English, and it was like a Japanese anime thing.
Oh, okay.
So it was like a robot, Monster of the Week robot thing.
What was the name of it?
Goldorak. It's Goldorak. Goldorak. Very famous in Quebec, France,
okay,
and Japan. It was done by Go Nagai.
Okay.
He did a bunch of those big robots. I think he was one of the originator of that genre. So anyway, that was the one I really loved.
How old were you when you got into that?
Man, I was probably like 12 or something.
Oh, really?
That was kind of like my... Yeah, that's what I remember. I had like a bunch of stuff I watched as a kid, but they're kind of fleeting, and I mean, that's the one that kind of I still remember. As a matter of fact, hey, can you hold on for 1 sec?
I'm going to hold over here.
There you go.
Okay, he's rummaging through all this stuff back there.
Yeah, that's just like the
you found. Okay. Oh, there you go.
So that was it.
All right. Okay. Goldarock.
Okay, so
Right.
so I have like the whole
That's pretty neat.
collection here. So that was a big one when I was
How many
a kid.
episodes is that? That is.
Oh, that's a lot. It's like 3 seasons, and they
wow.
each have like 24. So it's kind of like one of those kid shows. Like I'll put the DVD in the computer that's next to me, and I'll have it play like on the screen, and while I'm working, and it's almost like comfort food or something. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like it's the thing that
visual noise in the background that you can.
Yeah, exactly. It's noise, but it's noise you're familiar with, and it's noise that that inspired you as a kid. So I have a lot of films like that. Like Blade Runner is one of my side. I call them my side movies that they're just playing the background, and it just gives me that good feeling. It's funny because I told somebody, I said, Alien is one of the. I said it makes me feel fuzzy and warm inside. I said, Alien makes you feel fuzzy. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's weird, but it's one of those that I can put in the background and it just makes you,
everybody has their favorite stuff. So,
right.
I mean,
and Logan's Run is like, I think that has played like in the background
really
at least like 80 times. Or the one probably that I've had played the most was Star Crash.
Wow.
With Carolyn Monroe. It's like an insane, like a Star Wars ripoff, Italian. Star Wars. It's not really a Star Wars ripoff. It was Ray Harryhausen, Star Wars, everything thrown in, but it got greenlit because of Star Wars.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, things I liked as a kid. I love the Warner Brothers cartoons and Disney, but some of the things that I watched that really, like maybe at age 3 or 4 or 5, something like that. Gigantor. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, see, that's a little bit like I mean, Goldarock is a little bit like that. It's like a big robot.
Yeah,
Gigantor. That's in the same realm.
Yeah, exactly. And then Speed. There was another show, Speed Racer. Which
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
So was that the
It wasn't the catalyst for me going, but that was kind of like where I started really getting a bit more into animation, and then I discovered Disney, but Disney more in my teens, which is a bit weird because I didn't really watch that many Disney cartoons when I was a kid.
Right.
But in my teen, I kind of got into Disney, and I remember I would try to get my friends to go to the movie theater with me to go see Disney films, and I was like 14, 15 at the time, and they're all like, I'm not going to go see a kid movie like that. They were like embarrassed, and I always had to go by myself. I was always like the only one going because none of my friends, and I would like beg, and I would beg my brother. I said, come on. And my brother was like, I don't want to go see a cartoon in the theater. So it was like, there was where I came from. I don't know if it was global, but it was really like the Disney film were for kids. And if you were a teenager, you just didn't go see those movies, but I went.
So we're talking about the 1970s, right?
No, I was like, so I was born in 65. So I think probably like in the 1980, I started getting into the Disney stuff. Like I was
early,
about 15.
Early 80s?
Yeah, like usually like guys my age were going for the girls, and I was going for the Disney movies. So it was a bit of a weird, maybe I was just like behind or something. But anyway.
I was kind of the same way, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. When I went to Sheridan College, I'm like, that's when I realized there was a whole bunch of people like me. I didn't see that before because I felt like I was completely isolated in a way in Quebec City. And what was cool is we had like one of those art theater.
Yes. And
they played like all the Disney movies.
Wow.
Like they played Disney movies as matinees on weekends. They always played the Disney classics. So they had, that's where I saw like Jungle Book, Sleeping Beauty, and all those.
Right.
And I would go to all those, and I was probably 15, 16.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it was weird because the only way I could actually see these films was to actually go into the theater.
Right,
and watch
videos.
Yeah, and so, I'm a little bit older than you are, but anyway, Disney, I think, was a little bit cooler in the 60s, but I think toward the end of the 70s, it became very uncool to go and see a Disney film. And
that's possible.
And I just think the way it was, they weren't putting out very good movies, and the movies, in the 60s, they tended to aim for everybody. I'm not talking about just their general output, but toward the 70s, they really started to dumb it down for kids a little bit.
Yeah,
and
could be.
Well, they actually, I think Willie Rotherman actually said, we have to play for everybody. We're really playing for the kids. And when you get into that mentality, that's a big problem in animation, especially if you want to make money. Because if the parents don't want to go, then the kids aren't going,
Right.
So,
but so also I forgot to mention another thing that was huge in my influence was when I first saw Star Wars. But, Star Wars has become so common now that it's almost like it lost a bit of its luster for me a bit.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not one that I'll put on my side screen because it's just like there's so much of it. But having said that, when I saw that movie, that's when I decided I want to make special effects. And so that was kind of like the first thing. And even though I got into animation, I was still special effects was still what I wanted to do. And then I saw The Secret of Nim.
Yeah.
And that is the film that changed my trajectory because, I remember I saw Star Wars and I said, so my goal became, I want to work for like George Lucas, it was like, that was kind of my obsession. And then I saw the following year, I saw Close Encounter of the Third Kind.
Right.
Huge influences when I said, I want to work for Spielberg. Right? And then I saw Secret of Nim.
Right.
And then he became number one. That was Don Bluth. So by that time I saw Secret of Nim, I was at the age where I was like close to 18 or 18.
Yeah.
So I could now make a choice and try to aim it as a career. So that's where it was different than seeing Star Wars as a kid. So I decided to totally target getting a job at Bluth.
Right.
And that's what I did. I went to Sharon College and I did a short film completely. I tried to do it like the Bluth style and everything.
Right.
And literally flew down with my film to California and knocked at the door studio with my VHS tape. That's how I did it. I mean, I was insane.
Right.
And that's how I managed to get a job there.
Wow. When did you land a job with, so you worked in Van Nuys. So when did you?
Yeah, 86.
86. So
summer 86.
Can you describe how that happened? So you flew down because a lot of times they wouldn't let you in.
Yeah, it was weird. So I was I was in Toronto. I was broke. I had no money. I had finished this film.
Right.
I begged my dad to give me $200. That's what I needed for my ticket back and forth. It didn't even include food, but I'm like, I just need to get to California.
Right.
And,
you'll figure it all out later.
I'll figure it out when I get to California. And I had like my VHS tape and, and I'm going there unannounced.
Right.
So they don't know I'm coming. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go to Van Nuys, to the studio, knock at the door, go to the receptionist, and I go, hi, I would like to show this film to Don Bluth. I just spent like a year doing this film and I would like to show it to him. And they're like, are you insane? She looked at me like I had two heads.
Yeah.
And she's like, you can't just walk in here and, as to see that Don Bluth is a busy man. He's directing a feature. So, and I'm like, well, you have no understanding. I saw Secret of Nim like 3 years ago. And it's like, it became my goal in life to work for this company and stuff. And I'm just like trying to do this big sales pitch to her.
Sure.
And she's a bit kind of getting freaked out. And she's like, sorry, you have to leave now because I'm going to call security kind of. It was kind of like,
there was no security over there.
She was like, she thought I was maybe a bit psychotic. And then she's like, and you have this accent. She said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Quebec. She said, do you have a work visa to work in the US? I said, no. And they said, so even if we wanted to hire you, we can't even hire you. And so she's like, and I'm like getting more and more discouraged, but I'm like, at this point, I'm literally crying.
Right.
And I'm like, please. I mean, you don't understand. This is my life. I've dedicated myself to this. Yeah. So I give her the tape. I probably shoved it in her hand.
Yeah.
Right? And she took the tape and I left and I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. This was the biggest failure of my life. And I'm like, so I go back to the airport and it was, and I was staying at a friend, I have to say, I had a friend from Sharon College who had gotten a job at Bluth, and he was very gracious, and he let me sleep there at his house, at his apartment. So,
that's very nice.
That was good. So that was nice. So I, so I had that. That was great. So if he listens to that, Jean Morel, thank you for letting me stay at your house.
Right.
Anyway, so I went back to the airport, and then I tried to go get my ticket on standby for People Express because that's the only money. I only had $100 and it was $99 to go to Newark. And in the time that I was there, the company went bankrupt. So there was no more People Express. And I'm like, how am I going to get back home and stuff? So I had to get my dad to wire me some money. He was like totally pissed at me.
Wow.
So anyway,
Wow.
I went back to Toronto
Mm-hmm.
and literally like with my tail like between my legs, like, you know, like a sheepish little dog. And then I go, okay, I'm going to play the same trick, but I'm going to go with my second choice, which at the time was a place called Lightbox Studios.
Okay.
It was aimed by Greg Duffel, and they did really good commercials. I mean, I had seen their commercials on TV when I was at Sherman College.
Right, right.
So I'm like, I'm going to go work for this guy if I can't work for Bluth. So I pulled the same kind of trick. I go there and I said, like, I'd like to show this film to, you know, except I wasn't crying this time. I was just more like, you know, I want to show this to
not
Greg Duffel.
Not as desperate, you know. But, yeah.
Right, no, not as desperate. So she's like, oh, Mr. Duffel is very busy. Just leave me your resume and your film, and you know, I'll have him look at it. And as she's saying that, I see Greg with some other producer guy walking like behind me. Like he's walking out, and I go, "Oh, Mr. Duffel, I have a film I want to show you and stuff." And he's like, "I don't have time. Just leave it with my receptionist," something like that. Right. And then he just walks away. Mm-hmm. And so I walk out, and I sit at the top of the stairs that were in front of the building, right?
Yeah.
And I stay there, and 4 hours later or something, he comes back, and he sees me sitting at the top of the stairs, and he goes like, "Oh, you're still there?" He said, "That deserves me looking at your stuff." Yeah. And then he walks me in, and then we went in the back, and I showed it my film, and then I got hired there.
Wow.
And literally 1 week later, I get a call from John Pomeroy, and he said, "Michel, can you start on Monday?" Like, it was just like that. Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, and you guys are going to take care of everything, the work visa?" He said, "Yeah, we'll take care of everything. Just get on the plane."
Right.
And that was it. So I basically, you know, 1 week after I started at Lightbox, I had to basically quit.
Yeah, blow them off. Yeah.
And then that's how I started at Bluth, and I was with them on 6 pictures from that point on.
We had Sandro Clouseau. You know him.
Yeah. Well, I haven't worked with him, but I know him from Facebook. And
yeah. He's a wonderful animator, a character.
Yeah, amazing. I love his stuff.
His story is very similar, but he went from South America to Ireland.
Right.
And it was all or nothing, you know.
Yeah. Right.
He went to the studio and he begged that they look at his reel. Him and a friend went, and then they eventually they looked at his stuff and they hired him. They hired him both.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, like if you go through the regular channel, it's so difficult. I almost know nobody who made it at Disney through a regular channel. You either have to get into an internship or something, or you know somebody, you get recommended. Yeah. If you're just applying cold and stuff, it's like almost hopeless. So that's why I didn't know the procedures. I didn't know the protocol. I was a kid. Right. You know, I was 21 when I started at Bluth. So I didn't know anything. And I didn't know that you weren't supposed to do that. Like come and asked to talk to Don Bluth and stuff. You know, it's like I was oblivious.
It says a lot about persistence, right? Mm-hmm. You go in, you just go in with this gung ho attitude, and you just keep pushing. Somehow you find a way in. You know, I worked with Dale Bear. I was doing some commercials with him, and then I was doing. I was actually freelancing for him on Prince and the Pauper. And so I was doing some Mickey
nice animation.
Yeah, so Mickey and Donald animation. But when I went there and showed him my portfolio, he really liked the animation and he liked my line work. And he said, "Where were you a couple of years ago?" And he was referring to Roger Rabbit. Right. And so I applied to Roger Rabbit. I was working for Ralph Bakshi at the time. Right. And there was a guy there. I think it was Ron Rocha. Does that sound familiar? But he was the gatekeeper, right? Okay. So, you know, I called, I talked to him. He said, "Well, you know, you can submit, you know," and he didn't sound very encouraging. But then when I talked to Dale Bear, he said, "Oh, that guy." He said, "Yeah, no, we could have really used you a couple of years ago because we were having a hard time finding talent." So, it's really kind of crazy. It's a crazy business. Mm-hmm.
And connections are really important because seriously, like after I finished with Bluth, everything after that came from my connections. Right. Because I never actually sent a resume or applied. Like it was, and I went through periods where there's no employment, but I always use that time extremely constructively, and or usually to start a new project that would end up getting financed. So it's so I, I mean, Nancy used to joke. Nancy's my wife. She used to joke like, you need to get a job so you don't work as much. Because it's like when I don't have a job, I'm like I feel like so guilty that I'm not making money. I have to work like more hours to compensate for it. So I'm like, and I'm the type of guy like between work, it's like I have to be at my desk at 8 and I finish like at 6 every day.
You're trying to keep that work ethic going. Yeah,
completely. That's why when I segue into a job, there's like zero transition almost because I'm already like in that mode all the time.
Right. So you're hitting the ground running.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm always kind of like running the marathon, but it's become comfortable now because I'm a complete troglodyte and a hermit, and it's that lifestyle suits me.
Okay, let's get back to Bluth. So you got into Bluth, and what did they hire you for? They hired you for animation, or did they put you right in as an? I
got hired as I was an assistant animator to Linda Miller.
Oh wow!
And so on American Tail, I was Linda's assistant. And on Land Before Time, I got promoted to animator.
Wow! So did you make the trek to?
I was in Ireland for 4 years.
Did they start American? I'm sorry. Did they start Land Before Time before they went to Ireland? I'm sure they were doing some work on it.
Yes. I was working on Land Before Time in Van Nuys.
In Van Nuys. So were you doing animation at that time in Van Nuys, or?
I was. Okay. I did like I did a couple of scenes. I did a little lizard that was running around. Man, that's been a long time.
I know.
I can't hardly remember. Like I got like a request for a podcast. It's a Mortal Kombat podcast, and they saw that I work on Mortal Kombat, and they want to interview me. And I said, sure, I'll do it, but I don't remember anything I did on this. I'm like trying to remember, what did I do in this movie? I was talking to my wife this morning in the car. I'm like, I seriously don't remember. I mean, I remember going to work, working on the movie, but I couldn't even pinpoint the scenes. So anyway.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes I've looked at things and I go, boy, that's an interesting scene. I'll be like, wow, why does that seem so familiar? And it's like, and then I realize, oh yeah, I did that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That happens to me like on Land Before Time, like if it's on TV, like kids are watching or something and it's in the background.
Right.
And it's like I see, oh yeah, that's right. I completely forgot about this. I animated that scene. Oh, cool.
When that happens, does that, do you do like I don't want to say like deja vu. Well, it can kind of feel like that. You see the scene and then it's like, it's almost like it kind of brings you back to that moment in time where you were working on the thing, or maybe not the scene, but maybe just the studio, just the environment.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I have to say, working at Bluth, my career is like, like working at Bluth was very much more social than I've ever been. Right. I used to go out all the time in Ireland. Like when I was in Ireland for the 4 years I was there.
Right.
Work was work. And we work hard. Right? We did a lot of overtime, unpaid overtime, by the way.
Right.
But we work hard. Yeah. But it was work. And we did it to make the films look good. But things, after Bluth, things changed. I started like wanting to bring a vision to my artistry in animation. And but that was never present with Bluth. I always tried to do the house style with Bluth. Yeah. And I tried to do my stuff classical animation and do my character classical animation. And the first time I started trying to come up with real designs that had a bit more of a vision was when I did Swan Princess, and I started like experimenting with effects, and it was very crude. Like I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, these effects are it's terrible. Like, but I was trying to experiment and not trying to copy or like just do the house style. Right. But that feeling of wanting to have a signature in the film increased, and it became a bit my reason to work on these movies. I couldn't do generic stuff anymore. That's why I couldn't do shadows or tones and stuff. It felt like I'm dying if I do that stuff. So I picked project like Osmosis Jones was a good one where I could really like
spread out
to, spread out and bring a little bit of my signature within the movie. Iron Giant is another one. That was so that changed. And at Bluth, Bluth is almost like my final year of college. Those 6 years I spent at Bluth.
Yeah.
It was really, and Prelude to Eden was my final film because I did it like most of it after I would finish my work at Bluth, and then I would go home and do another 6-hour shift on my short film.
That was Prelude to Eden, yeah.
Yes, and that's what expanded. That's
on you. That's on YouTube, everybody.
Yeah, you can see that on YouTube.
You could see. I think it's on YouTube, and you can check that out. It's a really, really cool. I mean, ultra cool. When you watch it,
I can't look at it, but for me, it's hard for me to look at some of the stuff I've done like in the past. It's like, but
I think that's with everybody. You know, I had a discussion with Linda Miller, and we people have been listening to that, and I said to her, What is the one scene of animation that you were like, because she was saying the same thing. She was cringing, looking back at some of these scenes, like what she could, now she knows what she could have done or done it better or whatever. But then I said to her, is there any scene that you looked at and you said, yeah, that's pretty good. Is there any scene like that you worked on, like with Bluth or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's not characters.
Not characters. Just effects.
Effects. And there's not one that I couldn't make way better now.
Yeah.
But I think like my best effects work is definitely going to be on this movie that I'm working on right now.
You're working on this high profile film that we can't talk about because it's so amazing.
I want to kick ass, and I've already told the director I want this to be like an effects masterpiece.
Okay. We're gonna get back to that, and we're gonna talk too much about it. But when you were at Bluth, what was the last film you worked on over there? And you stayed in Ireland, didn't you? You stayed in Ireland for.
I was in Ireland for 4 years.
Okay,
and then I came back to Burbank
to work at Bluth and Burbank.
Yeah, like maybe 6 months or something in Burbank, 6-8 months.
Yeah, you weren't there that long.
No, I was there like maybe probably under a year, I would say.
So was that 1991, maybe?
90.
1991. Yeah. Okay.
I came back in 1990 because I went to Ireland in 86, at the end of 86. I think it was December 86, and I came back. It was somewhere in the summer of 90.
So you were working on Rockadoodle when you came back, right?
I was working on Rockadoodle.
But the other films that you worked on?
I remember I worked on Thumbelina and Troll in Central Park too.
Yeah.
So I worked on those two. So I think that might be it. That might be the last one.
Right.
But one of those. Troll in Central Park.
So you worked on Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven, and then
Yes.
Okay, cool. Did you work on the ride that they did for Hanna-Barbera Rhythm Muse?
No, I didn't.
You didn't work on that.
No, but I saw that
they could have used you on that one.
Yeah. I did work on another one of those special projects. It was called Kaguya Hime.
That was for the Japanese.
Yeah, the Japanese like super ultra Panavision thing.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, I worked on it.
You worked on that, yeah. I worked on that. I have no memory of what I did on it, but I remember working on it.
Yeah. They had they had a special projects division.
Yeah, so that was
at Don Bluth. Yeah, and
that was like really tough because the paper was like super wide or something, and it's like the cells we had to work in these super wide field. Remember that?
Yeah, the cells were incredibly long.
Yeah, it was like Cinerama or something.
Yeah, something like that, like almost like 40 inches wide. Yeah.
Just that was crazy. You can't flip it.
I tried. I learned to flip from the top and the middle of the drawings. Yeah,
I remember that. I think that wasn't Bob Simmons was directing.
Bob Simmons, he was in charge. Yeah. I think we had Walt Peregoy on it. I think.
Walt Peregoy was on that. He was from the 101 Dalmatians.
101 Dalmatians and the glory days of, well, maybe not the glory days of Hanna-Barbera, but he was part of the Hanna-Barbera background department from the late 60s, early 70s, something like that. And so what was the thing that made you leave Don Bluth Studios? Because everybody has a reason.
Well, they went bankrupt.
Oh, well, that's a good reason.
I mean, I kept using the studio, but they stopped paying me. But so when the check, because my last couple of checks bounced,
right?
So I'm like, whoa, I'm not getting paid anymore, I guess. So I stopped working on their project, and I just used my desk there, and I was working on my short film Prelude to Eden.
Right.
So I was just using the facility as I'm like, well, I'm not getting paid. I'm not going to do any work.
Yeah, you might as well use the testers.
But I was using the thing. So I think I used their desk for like maybe a month.
Yeah.
And then they shut down the thing. So I was kind of out of luck, but I was there long enough that I got a green card out of the thing. Because when they moved me back from Ireland,
right,
the studio got me a green card.
Right.
So then I could go and seek employment somewhere else. So I was able to. So I just apply at the or no, I didn't apply. Bob Simmons had gone to Rich Animation.
Oh, and that's how you got to work on Swan Princess. So was that where you? Now at Bluth, you were still doing character, right?
I was doing effects.
When did you transition effects at Bluth?
I was an assistant on American Tail. I was a character animator on Land Before Time. I was a character animator on All Dogs Go to Heaven. And then I became an effects animator on Rockadoodle.
Did you have to do a test for that? Do you remember how that?
Because what happened is, so we finished the character animation for All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Right.
And when that wrapped up, so they would offer you to do like either like shadows or like help out the cleanup department or paint cells and so and I asked to do some effects.
Right.
So they kind of tried me out for effects during All Dogs Go to Heaven. So I started doing effects, and then I would start doing like the water scenes and fire scene, and they saw that I was pretty good at it. Right. And
did you have a mentor there? I mean, you went to Blue
when I first Doris Lamfer was there when I was there, so he was kind of like the one that kind of inspired me to go into effects. Although he was trying to discourage me to go into effects as well, because he's like, oh man, he said like effects are for the people who can't draw. It's like you should stick with character because you can draw better than that. Like you said, the effects is for people who can't draw. I'm like, but I would rather draw the effects stuff, And I wasn't good at one of the things I had a hard time with was drawing on model and stuff. So I can draw my own characters, but I have a hard time like adapting to other models and stuff. So with effects, because it was so organic, I felt like I could just draw anything I wanted, and it was more freeing in a way. Yeah. So
what's more, I want to use the word cerebral. Is cerebral,
But sometimes, I mean, effects has a wide range. You've got like tone and shadows, which are the most mundane, like, that's like worker ants kind of type of work and stuff, and that's effects. So you can have that part, but you can also have the part that's really exciting about, like, especially when you pitch an idea to the director and you go, oh, I have this idea for this effects, and you come up with something really cool, and then the director says, okay, I'm going to extend the scene by a second because that's really cool, and then you get to kind of do something really creative, and I felt like, and character is amazing because what you can do with it is more with the acting and stuff, but I don't feel like I'm a really good actor, and I'm a little bit like of a misanthrope, somebody who doesn't like human beings, kind of. I mean, on a personal basis, I like people, but like in general, I don't like human beings, and that's why, like, I'm doing a feature film. My feature film, The Saga of Rex, has no human beings at all in it, because I say if I make a movie, there's never going to be any human beings because I don't like human beings enough to put them in my movie. So, but it's not like I hate people, and the people sometimes they think, oh, I'm sure you hate people. I don't hate people, but I don't have much faith in them. But on a personal basis, I can make friends easily, and I'm good, like on a one-to-one. But I believe, like, as soon as you get a bunch of humans together and the mob rules, then it's like people are insane.
Well, that becomes a different animal then, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I understand what you're talking about, but you're not a hateful guy.
No, I'm not.
You're very personable.
And as a matter of fact, my wife said something this morning. She said, "Oh, I hate this," and I said, "Honey, we don't use the word hate in this house, remember?" Like, so. But I mean, she was talking about like some stupid thing, but I hate this. But
well, I think of effects in a movie, and I think that's what you were drawn to with Secret of Nim, with the there's some
With the
really wonderful
backlit
effects in there
effects.
by Doris Lamford.
Oh yeah, Doris. Yeah, it was great. It was great to work with Doris. And,
Yeah, I think
the first time I started doing effects was I did a couple of effects scenes even on Land Before Time working with Doris.
Oh,
and
wow.
Doris gave me a couple of scenes, and I said and she said, "Oh, pretty good." And that's when I would have gone into effects right after Land Before Time, and Doris is really kind of like the one who delayed the whole process by a movie by telling me I should stick with character animation. And I'm like, oh, all right.
Do you think?
I'll give it.
Do you think that was more an ego thing? Because he was really good. He was really good at it. And it's like it's almost like when you're really good at something, you don't want somebody knocking on your back door.
But I wasn't good. I'm still not the traditional effects animator that he was, because he was a very classical guy, and he's he did the kind of effects animation that would be more akin to Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo. I do the Picasso and the Kandinsky and the weird stuff, so it's more like a more modern art, and he's more like a traditionalist, in terms of effects, and that's how I separate myself. It's like always like the first thing, like when I discuss effects, like on a movie and stuff, I always like, okay, what can we do that nobody's seen before? Or, and that's why, like, if you can work with a director that has that kind of attitude with you, it's really cool, because you can really search for like new pathways to do visuals, I'm
going to say this now because I'm probably not going to say it later, but when I saw Iron Giant in the movies, there was a moment where basically the giant can fly.
Yes.
And I caught myself with my jaw dropping. Okay. I'm watching this with a bunch of students. I was teaching animation at the time. I had a bunch of students. We were sitting in the theater watching this. And when the giant flies, it's such an amazing moment in the movie. And my jaw dropped. And I caught myself and I was like, I've never done that. I don't think at any movie. This was just like, it floored me. And I think the effects had a lot to do with that. I don't know. Did you work on that?
Yeah. I trail and stuff. And when he takes off, that's my effects.
Really amazing stuff. So the effects are, they shouldn't be the star of a movie, but the thing is that they can be. They can.
And they definitely shouldn't be, but they can increase the strength of a narrative. Because that's what, like, I mean, it just happened where I saw a situation. I'm like, wow, the effects could really reinforce this part of the story. And
that's right.
So you pitch it like to the director, and if you pitch it right, the director will listen and say, oh yeah, that could be interesting, and then you can
right. So it can heighten. So I guess the thing is,
you can heighten.
It supports and heightens the emotion, just like the music kind of plays into that too.
Right. Sure.
All these different color, everything.
Yeah, everything.
Oh wow. Okay, so
effects has changed so much too, and the tools are so amazing compared to when I started. When I started, like at Bluth, I did my effects on paper,
right,
and then it left me, and I never saw it again until it was in color in the movie.
Wow.
Right? That was it. It was on paper. I shot the pencil test. I would look at it, then it would leave. Now, because the technology is so available, when I deliver my effects, they're all painted. I've already done a pre-comp to show exactly how it should be with the level of transparencies. I can totally fashion my effects now,
right?
Which I never had the luxury of doing when I was at Bluth. So, I mean, that whole field as, you got
the control.
You got the control. And a lot of effects animator from the old school, they couldn't keep up with that. So they just stayed on paper, but I kind of went digital pretty quickly. I mean, Prelude to Eden was full on digital, like ink and paint and stuff. And that was like 1996 it came out. Right. It was like nobody even was doing digital ink and paint. I mean, we used Prelude to Eden to pitch the ink and paint systems and sell, I pitched to DreamWorks and Warner Brothers, all those guys. I pitch Animal using my short
Dynamo,
Yeah, that's how I ended up like getting known in the industry and getting all these job offers, because Cambridge Animation, when I was developing Animal with them and doing my short film and using my short film as the beta for developing Animal, they set me up in an office in North Hollywood. So I would finish work in Burbank, and then I would drive to North Hollywood.
Right.
And then I had this big office to myself with all these computers and these amazing scanners and stuff. And that's where I was making Prelude to Eden. So that was my night job. And I would go to that place. And then they would schedule meetings for me to pitch Animal because they said, it was a win-win situation. We pitched it as you help me finish my film and I will pitch your system to everybody in Hollywood.
Wow, that's
that was
really
kind of
cool.
like the idea. So then I would be like scheduled with all these guys from DreamWorks, all these guys from Warner's, all these guys from Fox, from Sony. I mean, like everybody was coming, and then I would just demonstrate, and I would use my short film to demonstrate to those guys, and I would usually end up the session. They would say like, "Hey, would you come and work for us?" And so I was. that's how I ended up like becoming head of effects at Warner Brothers.
Wow.
From all these pitches and stuff and getting known that way. So I was making a short film just out of like frustration of working at Bluth in a way that, not that I hated Bluth, but just I wanted to do more with my animation.
Well, you're limited. You're limited to what you can do. You're limited to the story material. And, when you get a scene, it has to hit all those marks that they set for you. So that's when I was doing that. I was animating that at night, and when it became time to paint the film and do the ink and paint, that's when I got stuck because I'm like, if I do this with ink and paint and cells, I'm going to be on this movie for another 10 years. I can't do that. So that's when I started researching ink and paint. And my friend John Hooper, do you know John Hooper? Yes, John Hooper, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. John Hooper told me, hey man, there's like these guys that are coming to Universal City and they're pitching an ink and paint system.
Right.
And he said, we should go look at it and stuff. So I went with John and we went to the pitch and we saw what they did. And then we're like, oh my God, this could be perfect. They need the film because they have nothing to showcase their software. Right. So we went to see them at their hotel room after the presentation, and I said, "Hey, can you guys hold here? I'm going to drive to Burbank. We're going to be back in 45 minutes with a VCR, a VHS with a pencil test of my film, and I want to show you, and maybe we can hook up together, and I will be the beta film for you guys." So me and John drove to Burbank. We came back with a VCR. We went to that hotel at the Universal Studio, and we installed it on the TV, and we played it a couple of times. The guys from Cambridge Animation are like, wow, this is great. This is perfect. This is what we need. So they ended up flying me to Cambridge a couple of times, and we worked with these guys. They set me up in an office, and that's how I did my film. And that's how I got.
Did they finance the time that you were working on the film too, or did they just supply the materials?
It was like I said, I will work for free for you guys. I mean, I will pitch. I said, you just give me all the equipment. I mean, everything I wanted. I wanted a better scanner. They gave me that. I wanted like more, I said I need bigger memory drives or whatever. They would always so they would update me and listen to me. Right. And I was able to fashion a software that was like the ultimate stuff because, they had nothing. They didn't understand exposure sheets and stuff. Right. So I kind of like really set them on a path.
So in a way, you're like beta testing the software.
Well, I was the alpha tester.
Yeah.
I was the alpha. I was really working with them, and then they would like fly me to Cambridge, and I would sit down with the programmers, and I would tell them like, because I would work with the software, and I would always have to find ways around because it was never. And they would even look at my stuff and they say, "How did you do that? We didn't do it. We don't have that." And I said, "Well, I did this and that, and I combined it." And they went, "Oh, we could automate that easily." So they would write something, and then that would be all automated.
Wow.
So that kind of stuff. So we worked that way. Yeah. And again, John Hooper was a big part of that as well. He was totally into technology, so he helped me, like for the feedback reports and all that.
Sure.
So
wow.
That was. And that really contributed to my career more than anything else, because that put me in a position where suddenly I'm in front of all the top executives in Hollywood, pitching this software, showing my movie. It's like, you can't go to these people and show your film, but now I'm actually showing how I'm making it and how I can, so that was like...
Yeah, it's killing two birds with one stone.
Oh, it kind of like it's like my animation career went from here to there at that point, and that's and that was kind of like, I didn't know when I started Prelude to Eden that it would it never brought me money in a way, because I always gave it for free, and I always, I put it on YouTube. Like, I didn't even care. It wasn't even monetized for, I think 5 years. I didn't even have it monetized. So I forgot to monetize it. And that's how much I cared about making money or productivity. And I literally have spent, because I saved a lot of money doing it with Cambridge Animation, but I spent a lot of money doing all the color timing at the end, and then hiring a full orchestra.
Well, this was put on film, I take it, right?
Oh yeah, it was 35 millimeter. Like we had Cinesite in London output it, and that was like the first test that they did, like outside. The first Animal test where they outputted to 35 millimeters. So it was the test for that. So so Cinesite agreed to do the whole movie for free as well, because and we pitched it to Cinesite. We pitched it and the same way I pitched it to Shirley Walker when I wanted her to do the music, because I had heard her score in Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, and I'm like, oh, I want her and stuff, and I went to see her, and I pitched it. Then she did the score for free.
Wow,
good thing, because the orchestra costs a lot of money. So, but she got me a grant for that.
How many orchestra members? Because I think
it was 37.
That's a lot. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah, it was 37, and then we did multi passes, so it was layered, so it sounded like
fuller,
bigger.
Yeah,
it sounded full, and but we did get. She got me some kind of grant for that as well, so I ended up paying a lot less, like I think 10 or 12,000 instead of like the full price, because she said, oh, you're eligible for this grant for something, and then I filled out the paper, and then I got it. So it was
wow.
Yeah, so it was cool.
It's a great calling card, I got to tell you. So that's on YouTube. It's Prelude to Eden, and please, everybody listen to that, because I think it's a wonderful film. It's another jaw dropper.
It feels crude to me, but
it's you're going to be. I find people who really care about what they do are going to be the most critical about what they do, and other people, like me, I don't. I know about animation. I know about a lot of different things, and it's like I look at it and I just take it for face value, and I think it's wonderful. So I know a lot of other people out there think it's wonderful too. It's not just me. Okay. So when you were working on Swan Princess, so you were hired for effects on that, and I started. I wasn't hired right away. So Bluth ended up shutting down, and Bob Simmons, who I had worked with on that Kaguya Hime that we were talking earlier. Yes.
So he had gone to the Rich, and they were doing a series of Christian videos and Mormon videos.
Yes.
And it was all these I remember doing Moses splitting the sea, and some dude from the Bible going into some oven or something and surviving. I don't even know what that story is, but I remember that. I remember drawing a bunch of fire, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that story, but it might be in the Book of Mormon. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm probably insulting millions of people here, but
no, it's okay. No, it's what you did. It's what you did. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I did. I wasn't familiar with some of the stories, but I did that. And I think I might have done some historical thing too, like Benjamin Franklin thing. Right. So they were straight to videos, VHS things.
Yeah, that was his thing, Richard Rich.
Yeah, so that, and it was through Nest.
Nest Entertainment.
Nest Entertainment. So I did that for probably 4 or 5 months, and I was working at home at the time.
Right.
And then Rich Animation got financing for the Swan Princess. So when they got financing, they called me up and they say, hey, we'd like you to come full time. And I think at the time, there was an issue too, because I had been approved for my green card, but I still had to do my interview.
Right.
So I had this gap moment that was kind of weird. It was like I couldn't leave the country.
Right.
You can work in the country, but you cannot leave because you can't re-enter, and then you have to wait to do that interview or something. So I kind of had that weird limbo time.
Yeah.
And that's when I was doing those videos. And when that ended, then I was able to get full time and then join the union.
Right.
And so I worked, and I was an effects animator on that, and about like halfway through or something, I got promoted to the head of the department.
Head of effects.
Head of effects.
It's a big,
I wasn't hired for that,
no,
but I became that, like on the film.
That's a big deal. That's
yeah,
a big deal.
I didn't know what I was doing really. Like, I felt like, wow, that's amazing. I had this serious imposter syndrome there, but like,
Yeah.
I went with it and I tried to do as good as I look back. I can't look at Swan Princess.
The sign of a true perfectionist.
No offense to people who love it. It might be great, but I just cannot. Yeah, and it's amazing how much of a hard time I have to watch anything I've done.
Yeah.
I still like to look at. I'd rather look at my comics. The like Saga of Rex and Zelda Cosmic Tale. Those are two graphic novels that I've done, and those I can look at, and I still get enjoyment from looking at those. But the movies, it's always like, I think I'm just trying to up my game all the time, and it's like
I'm just gonna just stop with this. We were talking earlier, and you've done a lot of different things. You said you did cards, right? You did
I did like a whole set called Zico.
Okay.
So that was like it was environmental type of trading card game,
right?
So I probably did 250 full painted illustrations for that.
Wow, very neat. And what else have you done besides that? You've done
so after like I finished during Swan Princess,
right?
We had a friend called James Mansfield who works at Disney.
Okay.
But he was working with me on Swan Princess. And
wait, what was his name? I'm sorry. What was his name?
James Mansfield.
James Mansfield. Is he?
He's an FX animator.
Oh, okay. Wasn't there another guy that worked at Disney? Maybe his father? No, you don't know. You don't know. So.
All
right.
No, James is from Europe, actually. He's from,
okay.
I think he's from Switzerland.
Yeah.
So anyway, he had heard that they needed some effects guys for Demolition Man.
And that was a live action movie, right?
That was, the Stallone movie. And I was working on Swan Princess, and I was, oh man, I was kind of like getting a little bit like, I kind of want to experience something else. I had done like a bunch of 3 pictures of effects with Bluth, and then other effects with Swan Princess,
right?
2D, and I was like, I kind of want to try something different. It'd be cool to do live action. So, but I didn't know. I had no idea how to get into it, and I said I can't just apply there. It's like, so anyway, we ended up going there.
Yeah,
and I talked to John Van Vliet, who was the head of effects for for his part of the movie,
right?
And I told him, I said, listen, give me a shot. You don't pay me. You don't pay me anything. And give me a chance. If I do it, then you pay me and you hire me to do the effects. And if it's no good, then you don't hire me, kind of thing. It was kind of like that type of thing. And he's like, okay. So he gave me a shot to do it. And I went home and I animated it, and I came back, and I guess it passed because I got hired on the film. And that was tough because I was like on Swan Princess at the time,
right?
But I wasn't head of effects at the time. I was on Swan Princess, but I was moonlighting on Demolition Man. So I would work on Swan Princess all day, and then I would go in and work on Swan Princess on Demolition Man another shift. So.
Do you remember the effect that you were working on when you tried out for what was it?
Well, it was like it's the finale when it's on YouTube. It's on my channel. It's the finale where Wesley Snipes is trying to obliterate Sylvester Stallone. Like he smashes this kind of cannon-like apparatus, and then the electricity shooting out, and he's trying to like kill Sylvester Stallone.
So you did the electricity shoot.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So that was so I did that, and I made a pretty good impression. So after Swan Princess finished, I ended up going there to work for him for John Van Vliet. So and then I worked on
how long did that animation last? Like that gig from
Demolition Man?
Yeah, was it like half a year or something? Or
no, it was short, like
couple of
maybe
months.
a month.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a month. It's pretty short.
Right.
And then I went. I mean, like all these movies, I'd say like about a month average. Like for me, like because there's just a few shots and you do them, and it's all like spread through a bunch of companies, doing all these shots.
Right. Right.
So I ended up like going, and he had a bunch of like low budget, like kind of C-grade movies, but it was kind of fun to work on those. So I worked on Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy.
Oh, cool.
So I did some stuff on that. And then I did Destiny Turns on the Radio.
Right.
Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, cool. Right.
And then Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
For the very first Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Yeah, we did a few try. And like I said, I don't even remember. I do remember one of the thing I did on that.
Right.
I do remember that. They had this big puppet called Goro.
Yeah.
Like the forearm guy.
Uh-huh.
And it was this puppet, and they couldn't get him to talk, like because he was so stiff.
Right.
So they gave me the stats, and they said, "So Michel, like you go over the stats with animation paper, and you articulate the dialogue so it's believable
Right.
that he's saying these things." So I did the dialogue, and I remember it came back, and then I think I was using Elastic Reality or some kind of software to move the lips,
Right.
And I remember my first test when John saw it, he said, "Oh, well, that looks way too much. It's like way too articulated because it looked insane now. It looked like this animated mouth over this puppet,
Yeah.
So I had to make it really stiff. So I wasn't going far off from what they had, but that's all you could do because if you start like moving the lips too much,
yeah, it looks like a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
It looks totally fake. So that's kind of where I learned like, sometimes you actually have to make it look kind of bad because if you try to make it look too realistic, it doesn't work.
It's not going to work. No, you're subject to your limitations, I guess. Yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of one of the things that I did on that.
Right.
But I remember doing a lot of electrical stuff, electricity stuff. And, and then I kind of got a bit bored with that. Like,
right.
And at that time I was still working on my movie. So I had like that, Prelude to Eden, that short. So I still had the studio in North Hollywood.
Wow.
During that whole time I still had, because I spent years on this film,
Wow.
Prelude to Eden, because it was all done at night and I was dealing with technology that really didn't exist.
Right.
I mean,
right.
You would scan the drawing and then you would try to play them and they would go all over the place, or they would be playing out of order. And I mean, you couldn't separate the line from the paper. I mean, it was like
right.
Everything had to be written.
Wow.
The way they had the software working, they had people like doing conforming vector lines over your drawings. That's how they had it set up at first.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't so. I told him you can't do that. I mean, this is going to take forever for me. But he said, yeah, but you get like the automatic in betweens if you do that.
Right.
But I don't need the automatic in betweens. I have all the drawings done already.
Sure. Right.
So anyway, what were we talking about again?
Do you have any questions or comments about the podcast? Please email Brian at Cartoonerific.com. Your email may be featured in one of our future shows.
Well, you just heard part 1 of our interview with Michel Gagne, and he will be back next week for part 2. So please come back for that. Well, the Cartoonerific podcast has a Facebook page, and we post a lot of different things on there. You should go there and check it out and follow us there. It is Cartoonerific Classic Animated Cartoons. That's our page. Please go there and join, and you'll be updated every time a brand new podcast is uploaded for your listening pleasure. And I've said this before. We also put on there some animation and interviews and things, so you should really kind of check that out. It's fun. It's fun. I like it. If you really like the podcast, what I'm going to ask you to do is please, when we put up a link to the podcast, please comment, say something nice, and share it to your friends on Facebook. This way it kind of spreads the word around, and I'd really appreciate it, so please do that. Anyway, if you really, really like what we're doing too, make sure you're subscribing to one of the services that cover us. We're not, Google Podcast doesn't exist anymore, but you got Apple and you got Spotify and now YouTube Music. Facebook, so we're on there. So follow us on one of these services. Anyway, Michel Gagne will be back next week, and we have a lineup of wonderful guests coming up in the weeks ahead. So please come back for that. Anyway, I'm wishing you all a wonderful week, wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
This has been a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
The Cartoonerific podcast is copyright 2024 by Cartoonerific Studios Incorporated. All rights reserved.